because kids with ADD or ADHD really aren't told on a daily basis about what the things are that they do correctly. They're told about the things that they're not done correctly, and they're feeling like, if you can picture yourself with a bag over your head from the supermarket, a paper bag, you're basically in the dark a great deal. And then hopefully with the right medicine and the right psychotherapy and a coach, that child, daughter or son, can start to feel more focused and more in tune with everything. And that, in collaboration with being reinforced for what they do right and what they need to pay attention to, really can be the magic that any child or teenager needs to start feeling better about themselves. And it's not so much that they have ADD that makes them feel bad. It's the shame that goes along with it. It's the feeling of inadequacy and being different and not quite with it on social cues, not quite with it on auditory cues sometimes, because many times if you have ADD, you'll have central auditory processing, which has nothing to do with hearing. It just has to do with processing. And all these things make you dance to a different beat. And we want the kids to feel that ADD is a gift. And there are ways that this book can be the bouncing off board, like a diving board, into finding out that, you know what, they have strengths, and we're going to see what those are, and we're going to take those three things. Let's say your son or daughter, I don't know really what you have. If you say to them, honey, what are the three things that you like most about yourself? Those things might come to fruition if you read something in this book about creativity or something along those lines, and then you can take those three things and narrow it down to maybe one or two things. Like they're very creative. People with ADD are very creative and very imaginative. Maybe you as the parent can start to find something that will make your child or adolescent feel better about themselves. That doesn't take that much challenge.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so we want children to feel like their wheels are lubricated, that things are running more smoothly, and it's important for parents to find things that their challenges will not interfere with.
Well, you know, one thing that we were talking about, absolutely it does. And one thing that you and I were talking about off air, and I want to make sure that I mention this, is that another reason I selected your book is that it's the only book I've ever seen, and I see a lot of books, and I review a lot of books. It's the only book I've ever seen that really does focus on self-esteem as a component of ADHD. So can we talk about that a little bit, about the component of self-esteem and why that, you know, you were saying that, you know, these kids already kind of have a feeling of, you know, gee, it's always pointed out everything that I'm doing wrong. You know, it's kind of like they say, catch your kids doing something right. But how can, you know, how can you be, as a parent, help your children with self-esteem? And I have 3 children, and they've all been diagnosed with some type of ADHD.
Well, focusing on the positive is the most important thing. And to give them, Dr. Hallowell, who's a colleague of mine who wrote Driven to Distraction, once gave a lecture where he said that kids have to see ADD as something really awesome. And it's like they're a car themselves, like a Ferrari, but they have a problem with their brakes. Their brakes don't work too well. And coaches help people and psychiatrists with meds and sometimes supplements too. There's different things other than meds. Like will help children to have more of a brake system working along with the help that they have. And they need the brakes, but they're a Ferrari, they're a fancy car that's really gorgeous and has a lot of pluses to it, but they do need to have a sense of control. Now, we know that anyone that feels out of control is not going to feel good about themselves. And children and teens and college kids, if they're not treated with for their ADD, will often use all types of downers and uppers to try and control their moods themselves. Now, if you have a kid that is sold on feeling good about themselves, I don't mean to bring Albert Einstein up because there are not that many Albert Einsteins around, unfortunately. But for an example, he was very happy that he had learning disabilities, and he was so brilliant that he recognized it. And he had a stutter, so much so that his nanny called him stupid, and his parents ran him over at that time. The mother was very smart and ran him over to a specialist to see what was wrong with him because they were afraid that he would not grow up to be a normal kid. And in Einstein's mind, and in a book that is all about his life and his work, it points out, the author points out, that Einstein was very happy to have something called verbal processing, which was a form of a stutter and then some, because he said it allowed him to make, it allowed him to become more aware of light and shape and all kinds of things that everyday people without ADD were not aware of or could care less about. Mm-hmm. Now, that is a positive attitude. Now, if we can take that and use his mother as a role model who would take the books from his classes that were going to be coming up in the future and have him review things beforehand and would point out to him all the wonderful things that he was capable of, kids will automatically feel better about themselves. And it's just a matter of helping them flourish in whatever ways they can. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it can be done.
Absolutely. And, you know, as soon as you mentioned Albert Einstein, I said that's such an important thing to mention, because I read an article about celebrities with ADHD, and one of them, you know, Albert Einstein struggled with his homework, with his schoolwork. Thomas Edison had a hard time concentrating during school and was homeschooled by his mother. So there are many famous people, and then there are also very successful people that are talk show hosts, hello, like me, doctors, lawyers, business owners, actors, a lot of actors, come on, have ADD and ADHD. But some of them, just to kind of let people know, Terry Bradshaw, who was, of course, he was the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers and is now on Fox NFL Sunday. He's an analyst and co-host. Chris Kamen, who's the center for the Los Angeles Clippers, has ADHD. And then they have, there are just so many different people.
And the host of Deal or No Deal, the comic.
Howie Mandel.
Right.
That's right. That's right. He has ADHD. Like, you couldn't tell that, everyone. Somebody like Ty Pennington from Extreme Makeover Home Edition. He has ADHD.
Right.
But you know what? It gives him all his zip and personality and all his get up and go. Woody Harrelson, believe it or not, was diagnosed ADHD and dyslexic. So, you know, Mariette Hartley, believe it or not.
Right.
Even, you know, artists and authors like Robert Toth and John Dunn. And again, lots of business professionals. So this is not a diagnosis that says, oh, well, you know, another interesting one, the son of Martin Luther King, Dexter Scott King, was diagnosed ADD, and he is the CEO of the King Center and really continues the legacy of his father. So, you know, this is something that's not, you know, a bad thing, you know, and I think don't you think it's important to tell children that, Kerin?
Absolutely, and to give them role models that they can relate to. Look at Michael Phelps. He's extremely hyperactive.
That's right.
But when he found swimming, he made it into something that was a passion, and he took his ability to hyperfocus, which every kid, whether they have the hyperactivity part or not, has the ability to hyperfocus on things that really matter to them, can make them into something much greater than an average person. And everybody has a self-evaluator inside. And when kids have extreme abilities and disabilities, their self-evaluator is not going to be all that positive. But if we can take that self-evaluator and really sit on the part that is positive, like a seesaw, and sit on it so one side is all the way up, then the people that have ADD challenges are going to be much more strengthened and empowered, because they're going to be able to focus on the things that they really love, like Michael Phelps with his swimming. Mr. David Needleman, the CEO of E-Ticket and JetBlue, was interviewed by one of my colleagues some time ago, and he went to this colleague of mine, and the colleague said to him,